Hey all. Just in all honesty, I am not doing very well. And my head is in about 50 million directions. So if it seems like I am really preoccupied or I cannot find my words, please just forgive me and let's just move on. Um, I am going to do a read along with William Faulkner's A Rose for Emily. By now, you have done the anticipation guide. You've done your ed puzzle, and you've done your vocabulary. So what we are going to do next is there's 5 short chapters to this story, and I'm just going to take you through it. I'm going to read it like I'd be reading it in class. I will probably have to stop a couple of times, and if I do, I'm just going to come right down here and I'm going to pause, and then I'm going to come back because things at home are a little chaotic right now. We have adopted, I don't even know if you want to call that, but taken over custody of Braden's 9-month-old black lab. And she is causing a great amount of chaos in our household. And it's causing a great amount of stress and anxiety to have a 9-month-old, 60-pound lab in our house with 3 other dogs. So I am finding life turned a little upside down right now. You wouldn't think that a dog would do that, but this dog is. So I'm going to take you through just 5 days, 5 chapters of this A Rose for Emily, just like we'd be talking in class, so that I can stop and explain things. It's a little bit difficult to follow at times. We start the story in media res, which is right in the middle, and Faulkner's going to take us way back in time. Most of the story is told in a flashback. We start off at Miss Emily's funeral, and that's where the narrator has taken us. You have to remember that Emily Grierson comes from old Southern money. She was looked upon, put on a pedestal, a really fancified last name of Grierson. She came from a very affluential family. So yeah, just keep that in mind as we go through the story. So I'm going to stop often just so you guys are on the same page. So here we go. Rose for Emily by William Faulkner. We're going to go through chapter 1 today. When Miss Emily Grierson died, our whole town met and went to her funeral. The men threw a sort of respectful affection for a fallen monument. Here, I'm going to stop. We haven't even gotten through the first sentence, but here Faulkner uses a metaphor to describe who Miss Emily was, a fallen monument, so to speak. So you can tell how the gentlemen in the town worshipped her and wanted to be her husband and this and that and the other. The women, although mostly came out of curiosity to see the inside of her house, typical woman, and to gossip, which no one save an old manservant, a combined gardener and cook, had seen in at least 10 years. So Faulkner is telling us right here that nobody had been inside Miss Emily's house for at least 10 years, except for Toby, her servant. So keep that in the back of your mind as well. It was a big, squarish frame house that had once been white, decorated with cupolas and spires and scrolled balconies in the heavily lightsome style of the 70s. That's the 1870s. And it was set on what had been one of our most select streets. So this house, in its prime, was just beautiful. It was grand, huge mansion, and it was in the most affluential part of town. But garages and cotton gins had encroached and obliterated even the august names of that neighborhood. Only Miss Emily's house was left, lifting its stubborn and coquettish decay above the cotton wagons and the gasoline pumps, an eyesore among eyesores. So, although at one point in time this house of the Griersons was the most affluential house in this neighborhood, and this neighborhood was the most respected neighborhood in Jefferson County, as time has gone on and the new generation has come, that neighborhood has decayed and fallen, and the only thing that is still even standing is Miss Emily's house. and she was literally living in it. And now Miss Emily had gone to join the representatives. And now Miss Emily had gone to join the representatives of those august names where they lay in the Cedar Bermuse Cemetery among the ranked and anonymous graves of Union and Confederate soldiers who fell at the Battle of Jefferson. Alive, Miss Emily had been a tradition, a duty, and a care, a sort of hereditary obligation upon the town. So when she was alive, people looked at her as tradition, old money, and because of who she was an obligation for the citizens in the town to take care of her. Dating from that day in 1894, this is very important, when Colonel Sartoris, the mayor, he who fathered that edict that no Negro woman should appear on the streets without an apron, remitted her taxes, the dispensation dating from the death of her father on into perpetuity. Perpetuity means forever. So let's take a look at this right here. Miss Emily, quit chewing your leash. If you wouldn't be such a pain in the butt, I wouldn't have to put it on you. Miss Emily, because she was an obligation to the town, there was a mayor by the name of Colonel Sartoris, okay? And in 1894, Colonel Sartoris went up, knocked on her door, knock, 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 knocked on her door and said, hey, Miss Emily, because of who you are and because of who your father was, he was such an important man in our community, I'm not going to make you pay any taxes anymore. No property taxes, no sales tax, no kind of taxes. I'm remitting those. You do not ever have to pay them again, okay? Never, into perpetuity. So keep that in mind. But that was in 1894. Colonel Sartoris was old then. So where do you think he is now? That's right. He's dead. When the next generation coming up, with its more modern ideas, they became mayors and they became aldermen, people who were distinguished who sat on board of directors. This arrangement, the taxes, created some little dissatisfaction. On the first of the year, they mailed her a tax notice. So the new generation, the new mayor, mailed Miss Emily a tax notice. Okay, I'm back. So they mailed her a tax notice. We just said that Colonel Sartoris had remitted her taxes for forever. Okay. I lost my place. Oh, shoot. I missed all of this, didn't I? Okay. I'm sorry. Man, let's back up. Let's back up here. Alive, Miss Emily had been a tradition, a duty and a care, a sort of hereditary obligation upon the town, dating from that day in 1894 when Colonel Sartoris, the mayor, the guy who fathered the edict, the law, that no Negro woman should appear on the streets without an apron, he remitted Miss Emily's taxes. The dispensation dating from the death of her father on into perpetuity. Not that Miss Emily would have accepted charity. She wasn't that kind. Colonel Sartoris invented an involved tale to the effect that Miss Emily's father had loaned money to the town, which the town, as a matter of business, preferred this way of repaying. So Colonel Sartoris hatched this story that Miss Emily's father gave a bunch of money to the town and saved the town, and for Colonel Sartoris to remit Miss Emily's taxes, that was a way of paying Miss Emily's father back for all of the nice and wonderful things that he had done to for their town. Only a man of Colonel Sartoris's generation and thought could have invented it, and only a woman could have believed it. So when the next generation, with its more modern ideas, became mayors and aldermen, this arrangement created a little dissatisfaction. On the first of the year, they mailed Miss Emily a tax notice. February came and there was no reply. They wrote her a formal letter asking her to call at the sheriff's office at her convenience. A week later, the mayor wrote her himself, offering to call or send his car for her, and received in reply a note on paper of archaic shape. Archaic means old, 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 old. In a thin, flowing calligraphy in faded ink, to the effect that she no longer went out at all. The tax notice was enclosed without comment. So Miss Emily wrote back, or Toby, her manservant, wrote back to the mayor of the new generation and said, Miss Emily does not go out anymore. So sorry, we won't be paying you. And they sent the tax notice back. They called a special meeting of the Board of Aldermen. A deputation waited upon her, knocked at the door, through which no visitor had passed since she ceased giving china painting lessons 8 or 10 years earlier. All right, I am going to wait for you guys to get out a piece of paper and something to write with, or something to take some notes with, or in your phone or whatever. So go ahead and do that. I am going to take just a couple of minutes. I'm going to go ahead and pause. Okay, let's start again. I'm back. You can pause this video at any time and go get whatever it is that you need. So, all right, so there are so many clues in this story. I want us to make sure that we get them down, because they're going to be things that you're questions, all right? So it's told us already, let's see, the Board of Aldermen called a special meeting. A deputation waited upon her, knocked at the door, knock, knock, knock. No visitor had passed since she ceased giving china painting lessons 8 or 10 years earlier. Go ahead and pause the video and write that down. She gave china painting lessons 8 or 10 years earlier. Okay. Now remember, we started the story clear up here in present tense at her funeral, and the narrator, starting right here in paragraph 3, started our flashback for us. And the rest of all of this has been nothing but a flashback. Okay. But this part right here, china painting lessons 8 or 10 years earlier, when somebody called and knocked on her door and said, hey, lady, give me your taxes. That's an important piece of information. So go ahead and pause the video and come back, okay? Okay, so we've got that down. They were admitted by that means the people that are knocking on their door to get the taxes. They were admitted by the old Negro, his name's Toby, into a dim hall from which a stairway mounted into still more shadows. It smelled of dust and disuse, a close, dank smell. Ugh. The Negro led them into the parlor in heavy, leather-covered furniture. And when the Negro opened the blinds of one window, they could see that the leather was cracked. And when they sat down, a faint dust rose sluggishly about their thighs, spinning with slow motes into the single sun ray. On a tarnished gilt easel before the fireplace stood a crown portrait of Miss Emily's father. Let's stop and back up. So the Board of Aldermen are coming in. They've knocked on her door. They want to talk to her about paying her taxes. Toby lets them in. It's dark, okay? The curtains are closed. He leads them into the parlor. Everything is dirty, covered up, dusty. And he goes and pulls the curtain, and as they sit down, okay, dust. You know how when you look through a sun ray and you can see all the dust floating? That's what they see, like this plume of dust just starts flying everywhere, okay? The other thing that I want you to pick out right here, lots of symbolism. We have our first rose right here. The author, Faulkner, drops these on purpose. So He said dust rose. This is a rose for Emily. Obviously, a rose for Emily is the flower. This means it lifted, but it's still metaphorical. So make sure that you note that. And then the other thing that I want you all to note is right here on a tarnished gilt easel. That means old. You guys know what an easel is, where you can stand, where paintings can go. When Bob Ross makes his paintings, they're on an easel. They looked over on an easel by the fireplace. Okay. There was a crown drawing of Miss Emily's father, which Miss Emily drew. Okay. Crown portrait of Miss Emily's father. Miss Emily's old. Guys, she's old at this point in time. Why does she still have a crown drawing that she painted or drew of her father on the fireplace? That's important. Oh, here's another rose. They rose when she entered the room. So we finally see Miss Emily. She was a small, fat woman in black with a thin gold chain descending to her waist and vanishing into her belt, leaning on an ebony cane with a tarnished gold head. Her skeleton was small and spare. Perhaps that was why what would have been merely plumpness in another was obesity in her. She looked bloated, like a body long submerged in motionless water, and of that pallid hue. Her eyes, lost in the fatty ridges of her face, looked like two small pieces of coal pressed into a lump of dough as they moved from one face to another while the visitors stated their errand. So we have a picture now in our minds of what Miss Emily looks like. All right. So they're face to face. They're getting ready to tell her what they're there for. She did not ask them to sit down, because remember, they rose, because that's polite. That's being gentlemanly. When a woman enters the room and you're a man, you should stand up, right? That's out of respect. So they're still standing. She didn't ask them to sit down. Okay. She did not ask them to sit. She just stood in the door and listened quietly until the spokesman came to a stumbling halt. So he's, your taxes. She's not saying a thing. And he finally stops. Then all they could hear was the invisible watch ticking at the end of that gold chain that she wore. Her voice was dry and cold. I have no taxes in Jefferson. Colonel Sartoris explained it to me. Perhaps one of you can gain access to the city records and satisfy yourselves. So she's saying, I don't have taxes in Jefferson. Sorry, Colonel Sartoris made it that I didn't have to pay him. Maybe you should go check your records and you can see that what I'm telling you is the truth. But we have, Miss Emily. We are the city authorities. Didn't you get a notice from the sheriff signed by him? I received a paper. Yes, said Miss Emily. Perhaps he considers himself the sheriff, but I have no taxes in Jefferson. But there is nothing on the books to show that. You see, we must go by see Colonel Sartoris. You need to see Colonel Sartoris about this. I have no taxes in Jefferson, said Miss Emily. But Miss Emily, see Colonel Sartoris. Well, you see, Colonel Sartoris had been dead almost 10 years. I have no taxes in Jefferson. Toby? The Negro appeared. Show these gentlemen out. All right. We are at the end of chapter 1. Okay. So I am going to take all of this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a discussion question. It won't be on the assignment. It'll be discussion. Okay. And it will have open forum for any of you to place questions or comments about chapter 1. And if you have a question about something like, I'm lost, what's going on, talk about this again, ask it there. Everybody will be able to see it in the class, okay? And then I'll answer it. And then that way, everybody can get an opportunity to see what we're talking about. So look for that. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to get it on my YouTube channel. I'm going to upload it to Classroom, and I'm also going to open that discussion question up for you guys if you need it. Let me know if you have any questions. I just want to let you know I am in the midst of grading week 3. I know that we are just starting week 5. You guys are overwhelmed. So am I. So be patient with me, all right? Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to y'all later. Love you guys. I miss your beautiful faces. Be healthy, be safe, and be blessed, and I'll talk to you soon.